yesterday, so,
All right.
and the only,
Today is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. The time is 3:45 p.m. I will now call the Policy Committee meeting to order. Ms. Kenny, is there a quorum present?
yes, there is.
All right, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Discussion. All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We have no review of policies this time, so we will move right into section 4, which is the revision of policies. So is there a motion to approve sending policy 503, student attendance, to the school board?
So moved.
Thank you, Nate. Is there a second?
Second?
All right. Discussion. So looking at 503, there's a corrected reference in note on page 5 and some punctuation.
Page 5?
Yep.
Okay. There's a note for me on page 4.
Sorry.
Am I missing something? This is 503, right?
Yep, 503.
Yeah, my notes are on 503-4.
I apologize. On page 503-9, it's just some clerical pieces.
Okay.
And then the note on 503-10,
Oh, okay.
and that is it. So no substantive changes. Any further discussion? Discussion. All right. All those in favor of sending policy 503, student attendance, to the school board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 507.5, school resource officers, to the school board?
So moved.
Thank you, Wendy. Is there a second? I will second that. The only one I see on this one is a simple clerical change of a number in the legal references. All right, so it's Minnesota Statute 123B instead of 120B. Other than that, there are no changes. All right. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of sending policy 507.5, school resource officers, to the school board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve sending policy 613, graduation requirements, to the school board?
So moved.
Thank you, Nate. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Wendy. Discussion. Changes are on page, 613-3, where there's a note that has been added. 613-4, some clerical changes that don't change any of the meetings. And that is it. Any further discussion? Discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of sending policy 613, graduation requirements, to the school board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Making good time here. All right, is there a motion to approve sending policy 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, Section 504 plans, and LEP students, to the school board? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Looking at this one, the only change is on 615-4 under section 4. It says now chapter 4, see chapter 4 instead of see chapter 5. Other than that, there are no changes to this policy. Any discussion? Discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor of sending policy 615, testing accommodations, modifications, and exemptions for IEPs, section 504 plans, and LEP students to the school board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That is it for our review of policies. We do have 2 policies that are new to us. All right. The first one is, we don't have a number for it, but it is policy for information security. The policy has been supplied for you. And Mr. Mike Birding is here to answer any questions. So is there a motion to approve sending policy information security to the school board?
So moved.
Thank you, Nate. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Wendy. Discussion. Mike, do you just want to give us a quick rundown on why we need this new information security policy?
Sure. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that regardless of who is in my position or who is in any of the positions that we see within our school district, that we maintain a clear security posture as well as identifying access controls and any sort of things that we would be required to via state law or federal law to ensure that we are keeping data private where necessary and also having any kind of information controls, data controls that we would be obliged to have. And so with changes in administration, oftentimes plans might change, things such as incident response plans, which for crisis management we're required to have by law. And having incident response plans and disaster recovery plans for the scope of technology is also a best practice, and oftentimes it is required for insurability. So having a policy in place guarantees that the superintendent is aware that we need to have such policies in place or such practices in place and designates, if necessary, people to do so. So make sure that any work that we do with information security does not go away with the change of personnel.
Any questions for Mr. Birding?
Mr. Chair, yeah, on page 2, I just have and I know I asked some of these questions yesterday to Mr. Benty, but I added a couple here. So under 5, guiding principles, 2, it talks about, that is, all schools or other facilities are responsible for the district data. And I understand that there's 2 databases that the data go to. And one of the things I should have asked yesterday was, we have teachers, according to if they're whatever their curriculum or class, whatever. Teachers can access, staff, administration. Who else can access then?
So we are under the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act 1332, which says how technology vendors are supposed to handle data, or rather how we're supposed to engage in those relationships with those vendors. So when we look at data that's out there, whether it's student data or staff data, or even other directory information, whether it's families, parents, that sort of thing, we typically get a contract that says, or a data privacy agreement in place that says this company is going to have our data for this purpose. This is how they're going to control that data. This is how they're going to audit their own users and how they're going to handle the data should we end that relationship with them. So we do, according to the law, we are required to post a list annually or communicate with families the vendors that have access to our data. So that list is posted on our website. If you go to the technology page, there is the list of vendors that would have access to our data.
Okay.
On the opposite side of that, though, am I 100% confident that I know every single thing that every single person is signing into with one of our accounts? Absolutely not. I would say that we have a good view on it, and we vet the things that, as a district, that we are going to adopt. And when we do those adoptions, I run them through a privacy rubric that I developed with local cooperatives, as well as other tech leaders across the state, to say, yes, I feel comfortable sharing the data with this vendor. And I wouldn't be able to name them all off the top of my head.
No,
but they
that's
are-
okay.
They are on the list, yeah.
Is like Health Finders, because I know a few people.
So, to the best of my knowledge, and I wasn't a part of the start of Health Finders in that data sharing agreement. I have seen the data sharing agreement as we use it to develop a different data sharing agreement. My understanding is that within the scope of that contract, we do allow access to certain data for the purposes of providing the services that are within that contract. I also couldn't tell you what that is off the top of my head. But if we kind of go through this policy, we also look at the spot where it's under section 3.5, establish a district data security officer role. So somebody who is going to know where these data sharing practices are taking place and set some checks and balances on that. While I don't want to reduce autonomy for our teachers and whatnot, what I do want to do is make sure that everybody is cognizant of when you have data go out, what are the possibilities that could happen with that data, and then be able to provide protections should something happen.
I guess I'm concerned because I know some parents are with the Health Finders, especially when we're getting into medical care or something like that, maybe even mental health care. I think I'd feel a little better if we had fleshed this out just a little bit, because that does concern me, especially, some parents may not want this. Do you have it? You have it on the website, but can parents opt out of some of these things with their students? That's a big thing. I think we have to address this before I'll say
Yeah,
it's okay.
so state law does provide that. So within the scope of looking at the application list that I have to send out via annual notification every year.
To parents.
To parents, yep.
So the parents get this.
Yeah, well, they get that. They get
Well, I
the
do
list,
not
yes.
get this, but get the list.
Correct.
And if they don't want, they can, do they have the?
Correct, and
They can
I
opt out then.
Yes, they can opt out. There are certain things in which we would not allow, per se, opting out, because it would directly impact operations, such as food service, right? Like, we need to be able to provide food service.
Sure.
In order to do that, we need the student information system. To be able to provide transportation, like, we would need to have a system
Sure.
set up for
Yeah.
them to be able to do that. And then that doesn't mean we can't have that conversation with them. And so the process typically is, if somebody says, I want to opt out of X, Y, and Z, we engage in a conversation, just to find out what the concerns are, because if one person has that concern, we want to address those concerns. We don't want to put people in positions that they're uncomfortable, but we also want to, again, honor the fact that, yes, there is data that flows in and out of a school. Some of it we can't control, and some of it we can't control, unfortunately. But I can tell you from my experience the first year I was here, and I'm not 100% sure if the annual notification of applications was sent out prior to me being here. I had one parent reach out to me. And when I responded back, I did a couple phone calls, and I never was able to get a hold of the parent. And then this last year after doing it, I had no parents reach out to me.
So it's not policy then to send this out to the parents. It is with you though, correct?
It's state law.
It's what?
State law.
State law.
Yeah.
So they would have to say, because I'm worried about, because I tell you, my daughter's in a different district, and she had a concern with something with they don't have health finders, but with the company, and she wanted to make sure that, the opt-out procedure. So as long as we send to parents all of this, parents can opt out, I'm fine with it then.
Yes, and like I said, we will engage in conversation, because at the end of the day, in order for me to make the best decision that I can for all of our students and all of our parents, I want to make sure that I know what those concerns are and what they're,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, thank you, okay. I'm fine then.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve sending new policy 598, information security? So that's the policy number, 598, information security, to the school board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Is there a motion to approve sending new policy 599, social media policy, or the use of social media, to the school board?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Discussion. Mike, once again, why don't you just give us the 30-second rundown on the need for this policy?
Are you timing me this time? So the need for this policy, Danette and I, Danette being our communications coordinator, we ran into a little bit of an issue when we had a staff member that had left. It took us a really long time to get control of an account. And when we don't necessarily have controls of an account, we can't really control what is happening with said account. But we were able to get, fortunately, the Instagram account, and the person who had access to it was very kind and supportive in getting it to us. But the idea of a social media policy is to provide some guidance for employees on how social media functions in terms of an organization, but also providing an understanding of the impact social media may have on the individual when it comes to being a part of an organization. So this sets the guidelines on the expectations of social media use in the professional educational setting.
All right. Questions for Mr. Birding?
I just have a couple comments, and then on page 3, under it's F, I think that's a good thing. Professional boundaries with students, I think the professionals in our schools should maintain a caring attitude, yet very professional attitude. I like that part. On page 5, oops, wait a minute, yeah. Okay. And actually, I've got a question, just kind of a scenario type of thing. On page 5D, speech that interferes with efficient operations. I noticed, and so this is kind of a good time to ask this question. I noticed, I think it was yesterday, Red Wing students walked out, they didn't like the fact that something about Black Awareness Month or something that was canceled. And so I guess it's good to have guidelines, because I'm thinking sometimes, staff or even school board members can influence or encourage students to do some of this. And I think at least this is a start for some guidelines, because, and then the last thing is, I think people put a lot of work into this. I think, as I told Mr. Benty yesterday, we're coming dangerously close to violating some of what's in here, violating First Amendment rights. And actually, the First Amendment, the very first right is speech. And so that's kind of a sacred, it's a basic fundamental right. We don't want to violate what they call black letter violation, and that goes back to 1847. I actually showed this to, well, I have a former colleague. His wife is she's a retired attorney. And I hope that was, since this is public knowledge, I gave it to her. And she just wrote back and she said, this could possibly jeopardize freedom of expression, which could lead to some lawsuits. I really think, and some of the paragraphs could be intimidating, and I think we need to have a lawyer look at this before I do anything else. And I think we better be very careful with how we talk about speech, and, because it is a fundamental right. It's actually the first one, and we don't want, and that is it's a staple, and that's why they call it black letter violation. I think we really need to walk circumspectly here, and I would really like an attorney to look at this, because we could violating somebody's First Amendment rights it could put us in a world of trouble. So I think I'm not going to vote for this if we need an attorney to really go over this, especially with the speech. That's my position.
Do you have, what makes you,
Okay. I think it was page 5, probably D, that she, and I think that's one. What's it talking about? Constitution? No, C.
good
Yeah.
other concepts?
Employees may be dispatched just not under the concept. We're getting into some gray areas here. And I'm thinking from what this friend of mine, his wife texted me about, she said, this is possibly jeopardizing freedom of expression, which I think she was referring to the speech. I only talked briefly. But I think we have to be very careful, because First Amendment is the gold standard. In fact, we don't want to violate that. So I think we need to be very careful, and we're in a gray area here. So I can't go along with this. In fact, the lawyer told me, she said, I wouldn't vote for that if I were you.
So,
I would agree that, obviously, I would like our attorneys to look at this, but I guess I'm comfortable with this. I know, I hear what you're saying, but also, I think if it's not within the policy, and consequences seems a bit harsh, but I think it's difficult. I'm just going to use myself as an example. So if I post something on my personal page, am I speaking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce? Am I speaking on behalf of the Faribault School District, or am I speaking on behalf of me, myself, and I? So that feels gray,
Yes,
right?
it is great.
I guess my employer has a very similar, it's, within our employee handbook that says, I need to be aware that people might not be able to draw the
Yes.
conclusions. So if it's, I don't know, I guess if it's not in the policy, where would it be? Because,
Well, I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but I think we need to be very careful with the wording, and
And
because
Mr.
it
Chair, if
it
I'm-
almost seems like intimidation in a way for the school personnel or whatever. And I think we have to err on the side of freedom of speech this time, but that's
so
my opinion.
let's do this. I'll make a motion to table this until May 6th of 2025, with the caveat that we run it through our attorneys at Ratwick and have them look at it with a concern and an eye towards First Amendment freedom of speech.
Correct. I think that would be a safe thing, because we could have lawsuits, and
Okay.
we need to, this is a gray area, we need to get some advice.
All right, so I've made a motion. Is there a second to table policy 599, social media policy, until May 6th, 2025, for our attorneys to take a look at it concerning freedom of speech?
And maybe they could just look through the whole thing just in
Well,
case.
we're not discussing right now. We got to go, is
Okay,
there a
okay,
second?
gotcha, yeah.
Second.
All right, so now that it's motioned and seconded, now discussion around tabling this till May 6th. Discussion,
You'll run the whole policy.
yes, we'll take the entire policy, we'll turn it over to our
Yeah, that's
attorneys
what I was asking.
and tell them to take a look at it with an eye towards the First Amendment based on speech and anything else that they see.
We don't want lawsuits. Right, so, okay, I agree.
Any further discussion? All right, so remember, we are voting on the
Table.
tabling, okay? So an aye vote is yes, we table it to May 6th. A nay vote is no, we don't. So all in favor of tabling policy 599, social media policy, until, excuse me, May 6th, 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Do I still need to vote on the, no, okay. All right, so there are no more items to discuss. Is there, oh, hang on. Next meeting is May 6th, 2025.
No, April 1st.
April 1st.
Nope, we're gonna cancel that
Oh.
meeting.
That's a
Oh.
joke.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
April
joke.
Fool's Day, is that it? Yeah.
I'm gonna actually take a vacation.
Oh,
Say
okay.
what?
I know,
Really?
I know, yeah.
Did you run that by your boss?
You're gonna leave?
I did run that by my boss, and she said, yes, I needed to take a vacation.
Oh, good.
Oh, you said it's all right,
That's so
right?
nice of you.
So,
Okay,
so we will
May
come
6th.
back on May 6th, and we're actually, so that everyone knows, we're actually doing very well on our policies. We are almost beyond caught up. So for us missing this one meeting, we'll have, I would say, a medium amount then on May 6th. But there's a chance that we may not need any this summer, depending on the legislature.
Yes.
Um,
So depending on that, but so we might not, our May 6th one might be our last one until possibly September.
Oh.
Okay, because we've gotten so caught up and done so many of our policies.
Jamie, what is it from, I read that someplace, I don't know if it was in the, but like every year we go through about a third of them, correct?
Yeah, so,
Plus the ones that we have to, from the
yes,
state legislature.
any ones that have changes, and then we go through about a third of our policies, so, yeah. They're on a 3-year rotation.
Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, there's no more items to discuss. There's a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.